About a year and a half ago, I got a call from one of my old ski buddies in Jackson Hole, and he had an idea and wanted to see if I would be interested in writing a book about skiing and climate change. And I didn't know a whole lot about it at the time. I was not that familiar with climate change news other than what's in the headlines. And I was also a little concerned. He's a very eccentric fellow. He's sitting over here. He used to be your Jackson Hole Moose mascot at one point, and he's part of the Deep team. But a brilliant guy, and he had these schemes that about, I don't know, 2 or 3 times a year he'd call me up and say, "Hey, I got this great idea." And the last one, that was just 2 months before he called to talk about the book, was actually, he told me that we should buy a trawler in Alaska and dredge for gold off the coast. And that was going to be like, this is the next big thing. But at any rate, I took the time to look into it a little bit. And I looked at the, NOAA and NASA, National Snow and Ice Data Center, all of the usual suspects to find out what was happening with snow and climate change. And I was totally shocked by what I found. It was some of the statistics that I found right off the bat were the Northern Hemisphere has lost 1 million square miles of spring snow cover in the last 45 years. The Alps, and this is a shot of Greenland right here that is melting right now at 5 times the predicted rate, which was predicted approximately 7 years ago. That's how fast that rate is actually changing. In the Alps, this is the Mer de Glace in Chamonix. Anybody who skied the Vallée Blanche, this is where you end up. That's 1915. This is 2009. The Alps have lost half of their glacial ice in the last century. The rate of winter warming in the United States has tripled since 1970. These are some of the stats that I looked at when I was kind of deciding whether to do this thing. And I've been a skier since I was 2 years old. I went to college to ski. I moved to Jackson Hole to ski. Everything was about skiing in my life. I've written for Powder for 20 years now. I've been an editor since 1999, and I've been incredibly lucky to be able to ski on 5 continents. Drag my skis all over the place, from Turkey to South America to Asia, all over the place, and call it an actual job. The thrill of skiing lasts a lifetime, and it's incredibly powerful. It gets passed down from generation to generation. It is unlike any other sport that I know. This is incredible, or what? It's so powerful, and in me, it was a seed that has defined my life. And most recently, after embarking on the book project, inspired me to try to become, as much as I could, a steward of saving snow in our mountains. Here are some of the statistics that the book that I wrote over the last year and a half highlights. This would be, oh yeah, I'm still talking about ski bum stuff. That's Bud Valiant from Government Camp, Oregon, who had seen the snow level rise by 1,400 feet in the time that he has been on Mount Hood. Alan Carter, who has a little hydro plant in the Sioux Creek up in Montana that he essentially can't run anymore because there's not enough runoff. He can only run it for about 2 months now. He used to run it for 6. The final statistic that was really jarring to me was the fact that a lot of climatologists and snow experts around the world were predicting that by the end of this century there might not be enough snow to ski around the world, and certainly it will be nothing like what we know today. Some of those statistics that we put in the book and are really trying to spread around are, by 2100, the planet's going to warm approximately, and this is all predicted, of course, between 7 and around 11 degrees Fahrenheit. That's average warming. There's much more warming over land than over ocean. And in hotspots like parts of Africa, the Middle East, parts of Europe, and unfortunately the Western United States is another hotspot. It could feasibly be even more. Again, by 2100, actually this is within the next 50 to 70 years, they're looking at potentially 2/3 of the resorts in Europe not being snow reliable, which means they can't be open for Christmas and likely don't have enough snow to stay open. The Western United States could lose 25 to 100% of its snowpack by the end of the century. More than half of the resorts in the Northeast are predicted to likely close in the next 30 years. They're close to the ocean. They warm a lot faster for various reasons. California stands to lose 15,000 jobs and approximately $7.5 billion in revenue under high emissions scenarios by the end of the century. Under that same scenario, the Cascades and Sierras could lose 40 to 70% of their snowpack. Park City snowpack would drop to 0, and Aspen skiing would be confined to the top quarter of the mountain. That's the doom and gloom part of this. The second half of the book that we created talks about the fact that it does not have to be that way. There's more carbon in the atmosphere right now than there has been in 3 million years. 97% of climatologists around the world, these are thousands and thousands of scientists who have spent their lives studying this. Almost 100% of them agree that humans are warming the earth. It is because they are burning, taking carbon out of the ground, and they are putting it into the sky. And that is what is insulating the earth, and that is what is melting snow. It takes 1 degree to have snow versus water. And that is why snow is so sensitive, and it is among the first visual indications of climate change. And that is why skiers, climbers, snowboarders, anybody that lives at altitude or recreates in the mountains or travels in them are among the first populations to see this. And why we are sincerely hoping that we can be among the first to take action and create a groundswell to stop this trend. There are some great advocacy groups out there already. Protect Our Winters is just incredible. They are doing so much and have been, they were on the Capitol Hill just during the government shutdown a week and a half ago, and they're pushing senators and representatives constantly trying to get climate change mitigation legislation, trying to move the needle at a very, very large, to a very large extent. It's not about one family recycling anymore. It's too late for that, although that is important. We need massive change. We need it soon. And most scientists say that we have about 20 to 30 years to instigate the first steps before that window closes and we lose control over the thermostat. POW has a great pledge, and they have 7 steps that they suggest. And for anybody that's sitting around frustrated with their Congress people right now, there are certain things that you can do. The first is to get political, know who your Congress people are, get in touch with them, and let them know how you feel. Educate yourself. Everything is out there on those websites that I mentioned, peer-reviewed studies. The State of the Cryosphere on the National Snow and Ice Data Center website is a great resource just to get started and learn about it. Find your biggest lever. This is somebody who is a business person, a politician, anybody that has more influence than you. Get their ear and have them help in the fight. Be vocal, bug your friends, social media, Twitter, email, share posts, share statistics, whatever you can to spread the word. Number 5 is talk to businesses. Businesses can move the needle far faster and on a larger scale than individuals. Change your life, live more sustainably. The side effect is that you will save money and you don't have to work as much and you can ski more. Number 7, join Protect Our Winters. They really are an incredible group started by Jeremy Jones. And there's nothing like them in the States right now. They're completely dedicated to saving snow in our communities, which is not just about skiing. It is about the water cycle on this planet, the climate cycle on this planet. Snow and ice are incredibly important to how this planet operates, and everybody downstream of the mountains can attest to that. What we tried to do with Deep was not focus on the dark and dreary part of this so much. We really talk about the history of skiing, the dynamic qualities of the skiing life. That was shot just like 4 years ago, by the way. It was amazing. We wanted to, secondly, paint a realistic picture of what is happening. All the statistics are in there, all the facts, and all of the resources where you can look and go see for yourself. And lastly, we mapped a path to slow or stop this trend, and namely, save the way of life that humans have become accustomed to in the last few centuries. It's incredibly important to all of us here in this room, I'm sure all in mountain communities, but there's 1 billion people around the world that depend on snowmelt for their water supply, and it's very important to them too. We put together some shots from the book, some interviews, some clips that we took. I traveled about 2,000 miles through the Rockies, Alps, Cascades, other ranges all over the Northern Hemisphere collecting data. I spoke to avalanche experts, ski patrollers, old-timers, skiers, climatologists, everybody to just figure out empirically what was going on, theoretically what was going on, and speculatively what was going on. This book will come out November 15th. We hope you all will get a copy or at least check it out and spread the word. We're also starting a Kickstarter campaign next week to start to pay for the printing bill. This is an independently published book. The publishers are 2 skiers in Jackson Hole who just decided that this needed to happen, and so they put their all into it. Yeah, congratulations to them. 2 bold souls, and their asses on the line, so let's try to spread this message and let everybody know what's happening to snow in our world. Enjoy.
Just a few miles there to Portage Glacier, and there's a lake, and it's a great enormous glacier calving, dropping big chunks of ice into the lake, you know. And I mentioned that to her. She says, that was a while ago, and I said, what do you mean? It's not there. That glacier doesn't exist. 20 miles up the valley, there's a little of it. It isn't there.
The planet has warmed 0.8 degrees C since the Industrial Revolution. So that's the big picture. In the Northern Hemisphere, in the last 50 years, we've lost 1 million square miles of spring snowpack. A new study by the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration showed that in the US, you'd lose 30 to 70% of your snowpack. And in chunks of the country going down from the East Coast all the way up through Texas and into California, you'd have greater than 50% reduction in snowpack.
We don't get the severe cold temperatures we used to. We'd have 2 to 3 weeks of below zero weather, 30, 40 below, and we didn't think anything about it. It seems like, if we have 2 days of below zero weather, that's a long period here.
And round 4. Come back, get paid, I got the girl.
Interestingly, in Colorado, recently the USDA said about the Aspen area, you're in a new zone. So plants that used to be in zone 5, you're now in zone 6. So basically they clicked and dragged Aspen a little closer to the desert.
We have an observation site up at Government Camp, Oregon, just plotting the data over the past 60 years that in general the snow each season has decreased, particularly from about 1975 on.
It used to be where a rain event in the middle of winter, meaning December, January, February, was rare. I mean, you might get one event every few years. It was rare, and it was noticeable, and it was like, wow, what just happened? Anymore, meaning in the last 8 years or so, it feels as though we're getting them at least once a year, if not multiple times a year. And it's not just at the lower elevations. We'll have rain events that are going all the way to 8,000 to 9,000 feet.
The last time atmospheric CO2 were at the levels they are today, and now they're 400 parts per million, the oceans were 75 feet higher, and it was 11 degrees warmer. If you go to 6 degrees C, which again is catastrophic, it's a much drier world. There's persistent drought in the American Southwest and throughout large parts of the world. You have radically increased fires. You have big problems with food insecurity and water availability.
It's kind of crazy, right? That really in a pretty short time, we've made drastic changes to how we live on the planet.
I think the biggest thing that skiers and snowboarders need to do is to realize that it's actually a problem that needs to be solved, right now.
This is something that affects us all. We're a global society now. We gotta stop thinking about ourselves.
For Alps, it's a castle of many rivers. We live with this nature, we live with this glacier, with this mountain, with these trees, with this animal. It is a composition of our life, like the fish in the sea, like all these elements.
The comparison between human experience and measurements just shows that what we nowadays think is really a very, very good winter is true for the last 10 to 20 years, but it's nothing compared to what our measurements say used to be in the decades
I was just 13 years old. We had all the months of October, November. We had closed each day. We had snowfall. And we had such massive snow, huge, that from that time away I had never seen something like that.
There was a time not so far ago, so a few years ago, that we scientists thought maybe since we may have more precipitation due to climate change because warmer air can hold more humidity, that we may have more precip, and more precip in the higher regions would say more snow, since there, although it's warming, it's still cold enough. But nowadays, from observations and also from the newest climate models, we see that the temperature is really the controlling parameter.
Climate change is often seen as not as a challenge, but as something very, very frightening or very dangerous. You don't want to talk about it, you don't know what to do, or some people think, okay, we have to change everything within a year or two or so. And at least in the tourism sector, in the winter tourism sector, I think we can say that we have about one generation to react. It also takes one generation to look for alternatives and to change the system to become less dependent on snow. You cannot close your ski area and say, okay, now we're doing something else. So it takes about 10, maybe 20 years when the younger generation comes to the into the positions to decide what to do. And We are still lucky that we have that time to react, at least to adapt to climate change, but what we should think about is to mitigate climate change, and that's what we have to do right now.